who has another engagement a little earlier or a little later this morning, Senator Tina Rose Muñoz Barnes. Um, we skipped chapter 10, I believe. Is that? Yeah, chapter 10, which is the Guam Visitors Bureau, which is under her purview and the Tourist Attraction Fund. And we wanted to return to chapter 10, in which the senator wishes to present several amendments to the body in that section of the bill. Senator Muñoz Barnes, you're recognized.
Si
And
Jus,
Viva Cumpleaños.
buen provecho. Thank you, si Jus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present a couple. I do have a couple of amendments for Chapter 10, and the first one, sir, is, Mr. Chair, is I've passed out this amendment, and it would amend Section 2, Roman numeral 2, AGs to read the Tourist Attraction Fund from 23,168,200 to 25,500.082. And I just want to, and then of course, if we go section by section, we want to amend several sections of the chapters that have to do specifically with the Tourist Attraction Fund, and it's all noted there. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that based on the Special Revenue Fund tracking from BBMR, we've had an average of at least more than 15% and rising increase in the Tourist Attraction Fund account since December of 2011. And when we started to track those actual numbers, Guam, the tourism market here, which is 60% of our economic driver, has seen a very positive rebound from the atrocities that happened in the past years. And I want to say that it's gone from a 6.6% increase all the way up in some months to as high as 21.3%. And given these consistent increases, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, we're very confident that the Tourist Attraction Fund revenue projections of 25.5 million with a potential high of even as up to 27 million. But I just want to say that we've been working closely with the Guam Visitors Bureau's research team, and the amendment we're putting forward is consistent with the revenue that we have here. I also want to note that the programs and projects that are funded through these pass-throughs to promote our tourism is to support our expansion into new markets and enhance our product by promoting who we are as an island, Guam, unique, an island destination, a beautiful island destination, and to promote our unique history and culture. And I want to say that as we continue to see the increases in our visitor arrivals each month, each year, the investments we make in our tourism industry today will definitely have positive dividends for our future. And Mr. Speaker, I've been working closely with GVB, and I'm confident that with this amendment that our people of Guam will see the fruits of how hard the Guam Visitors Bureau, its team, and of course all the stakeholders within the island to come to make this work together as one Team Guam. So I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I hope my colleagues will support the efforts.
Thank you very much, Senator Muñoz Barnes. On the yes, so this would replace this is the amendment. Okay. No, it's basically replacing Section 1. Yeah. Right. Chapter 1, in Chapter 1, is the amendment to the revenues in which the adopted revenue was the 23,168,200. That is amended to read 25,500,082. The differential is a revised revenue estimate provided by the Guam Visitors Bureau Guam Visitors Bureau in the based upon an updated tracking of the Tourist Attraction Fund. They have requested that and understood that the tracking with the revenues and the arrivals will exceed the earlier estimate of 23,168,200. The current updated revenue tracking for this year's Tourist Attraction Fund is we're tracking to end the year this year at 24,861,676. So based upon that tracking number and the projections of visitor arrivals in fiscal year 2013, GVB had requested that based upon those factors of the collections to date plus the additional arrivals estimated to increase next year, that we will receive or collect next year 25,500,000. And so these are the latest thing in terms of the revenue estimate. And the Office of Finance and Budget basically concurs based upon the latest tracking that was given to the committee and the office. So, Senator Respicia?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and with this increased adjustment in the tracking from 23 million to 25.5 million, I also see additional increases. But earlier, when this amendment was first proposed, we had a discussion, and you indicated that there's still about $2.2 million in reserves or unappropriated. Is that
Correct.
Still the case today, even after this amendment? Or are they looking to?
No, with this amendment, a portion of the and you'll see it in here in terms of the amendment in the other sections, that some of the, I think one.
What would still be available to appropriate? Because the concern we've raised also is what the Japan Consulate Advisory was, that and the kind of destination Guam is currently being perceived by that office and for our tourists. And so
There would still remain 1.8 million of unappropriated, unreserved fund balance.
okay, because we have a bill that would appropriate some money to
Right.
the Guam Police Department,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that the oversight chair will hold a hearing as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
thank
there'll still be 1.8 million
Okay,
left
thank
over.
you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. All right. So the Senator Ada, any additional questions on? Okay. And so then the second amendment, where you have number 2 there, would be because of the increase in the revenue estimate, the special fund revenue total would change by that additional increase from 23 million to 25. So if we accept the 25,500, then it's just now the mathematical corrections to add that additional to the fund, to the line items in the budget that reflect special fund revenues. So, and those appear on line 3, page 7, and then line 5, page 7. And then the grand total would increase also by the additional amount in the adopted revenue for the increase in the Tourist Attraction Fund. Then section 2 is the appropriation for the street maintenance and beautification. In the existing area section of that budget, that appropriation of $1,036,000 came out of the unreserved fund balance. Now we're funding it just from the regular collections, from that increased collections. And then number 6 that you have there on the first page then the appropriation. Senator Ada.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this amendment of Section 2 of Chapter 8, I just have a concern about on line 21, the funds are to be used for the maintenance and beautification of village, secondary, and tertiary roads. I'm not sure I mean, I think we're all clear. There's the routed roads, Route 1, Route 8, Route 10. After that, everything else is really left to Gov Guam and the village mayors to do. So, I think maybe, but the thing that really kind of concerns me is that, like, for example, on tertiary roads, and I think we need to make it clear that it is for the maintenance and beautification of village public roads, so that then, you know, the money can't be used to pave the road from the government easement into through private property.
Okay.
So I would think that maybe that concern can be addressed by then making that amendment on line 21 to read maintenance and beautification of non-routed public roads.
Okay. Any objection on the amendment? I think that's fine. No objections? Amendment carries. So it's strike out village, secondary, and tertiary, and just put non-routed public roads.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So the amendment has carried. Okay. The amendment number 2 is the sum of $1,215,855. Again, the change there is that this will now come out of the additional revenue, adopted revenue, and not out of the unreserved fund balance. The number 7 amendment, Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment section 2, the 1.215855, I wanted to be able to, Mr. Chair, include, if possible, to allow this fund to supplement the Department of Parks and Recreation to maintain public beaches and parks. You know, there's down, specifically down in Tumon at the Ipoh Beach Park, you have such a wonderful landscaping in Tumon, San Vittori's Road, but when it comes down to the parks such as Ipoh Beach Park, Matapang Beach, and I don't know if there's any other beach or parks down there, it's Parks and Rec who's charged with maintaining those parks. And talking to the individuals, the very limited resources they have with Parks and Rec, most of the time they even have to use their own vehicles to haul trash out of there. And so if we could, and if it's, I would like to, of course, ask the oversight chair if language can be included there where it says here, the TAF to the GVB to fund the Tumon and Hagana Beach cleaning, Tumon landscaping, and I want to propose this, island-wide roadways maintenance projects in fiscal year 2013, and to supplement the Department of Parks and Recreation to maintain public beaches and parks.
All right. I have the amendment as stated. Make sure that you write that down so that the clerk we'll discuss it, but make sure that the clerk gets that in writing. And so I have on the amendment as proposed by Senator Rodriguez, I have the oversight chair, and then Senator Cruz. Was that you?
I just,
Oh, a different amendment. Okay, so Senator
I just
Guthers
want
on
to
this.
share with the good author of the amendment that it was with the Department of Parks and Recreation, and it was requested in the past to have the GVB work it because the Department of Parks and Recs didn't and still does not have the manpower, the additional manpower, and in their efforts to reorg and downsize and promote, they gave the that part of the provision that Parks and Recs was doing to have because it was coming out of the Tourist Attraction Fund, to have GVB outsource and work the partnership with the GVB and the the private vendor that was going. So it was literally given to GVB because the funds were coming out of the TAF to have GVB work the RFP to outsource this in their efforts, because Parks and Recs continues to not have the manpower and the capability of doing it. And we've had numerous roundtable discussions and public hearings when it came to cleaning the beach areas, and this was several for the last I want to say 3 and 4 terms ago. So as I applaud the efforts of the good author, I just know that I just want to say that it was transferred from Parks and Recs to GVB to be able to maintain the outsourcing and the RFP for this contract. Thank you.
Senator Rodriguez, I had Senator Guthers. Did you want to speak? Senator Guthers and then Senator Yamashita. On the amendment by Senator Rodriguez.
Oh, I support his amendment. And I also have another amendment to add to his amendment. Should I wait till we finish his
Yes.
amendment? Okay, thank you.
Senator Yamashita.
Thank you very much, Speaker Ben. Speaker Ben, can we please have the amendment repeated?
Yes.
Thank you.
Senator Rodriguez, could you please?
Okay. On page 2 of the amendment, line 2, it says, and Hagåtña beach cleaning, comma, Tumon landscaping,
Right.
comma, island-wide roadways. So we're removing
Yes.
and we're continuing island-wide roadways maintenance projects in fiscal year 2013, comma, and to supplement the Department of Parks and Recreation to maintain public beaches and parks.
Thank you very much, Speaker Ben. Speaker Ben, I fully support this amendment, and I think that if we did give them the money to fund, I certainly appreciate what the Oversight Chair has shared, and I understand. I've been at enough roundtables myself to understand their plight. But I'm thinking this is a real creative way to help our Parks and Rec contingent get the kind of support they need, because certainly, Speaker Ben, it's not just Tumon that we're about. We do talk about ecotourism. We do talk about getting into our villages where Guam really is seen and appreciated. And so this is a way to give Parks and Recreation support to realize their mission. I think this is a very smart amendment, Speaker Ben, and I stand in full support of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Yamashita. Any other senator wish to speak on the amendment? Any objections? Senator Speaker Wampat, did you have?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have no real problems with the amendment. Originally, and I'm glad the previous speaker had asked for it to be reread, because I was thinking that this was going to be just in Tumon. And and I'm just wondering, you see, and I don't know if whether either of either the author, the mover of this, and then of course the amendment to the amendment, whether either one of them really can speak to the amount of $1.2 million that originally has been then to take care of the Tumon and Hagåtña beach cleaning, the Tumon landscaping, the island-wide roadways maintenance, and now this, whether the amount of money would be sufficient. I mean, if it definitely will be sufficient to include this additional, project, of course, the better we are for it. I just want to make sure we're not going to end up shortchanging one or two of the areas, and the reason why I say that's because it has island-wide roadways and maintenance, and then if you read the amendment just above that, where we actually had now deleted the secondary and tertiary roads to routed public roads, and then is are we kind of supplanting some of the others that somebody else is going to be doing? And I just don't know where we're going to draw, how do you draw the lines here? And I think that maybe we need to kind of stop and look at that and find out then that one is not doing what the other would be doing too. So, but other than that, if either one of them can tell us, share with us whether that dollar amount with the additional requirements here would be sufficient to do this. And then the second question, of course, is the island-wide roadways maintenance versus what's being done on the non-public roads, throughout the island, which is, of course, are in the villages. Because island-wide includes all of our villages.
Yes. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. No objections? Amendment carries. Okay. The next section, again, this changes the appropriation source of the $200,000 for the rainy day fund. Oh, okay. But is your amendment on section 2? Yeah, but this one is on for the appropriation of the Village Street. This is the Tourist Attraction Fund. We're still on the Tourist Attraction Fund. But is it contained in lights? Okay. All right. Is it going to be a new section is what I'm asking? Or is it an addition to an existing section? It's let's make it a new section, and then so let's finish this, and then if it's a new section to add, we'll recognize you at the end. Okay? All right. The appropriation for the rainy day fund in the in the section that's being replaced, it came out of the this year's fiscal year revenue. This changes the appropriation from the unreserved fund balance. Section number 8 there. Yes, Senator Tamara.
I guess that line 11 just kind of begs the question, how much is in the unreserved fund balance?
$2.4 million.
Santa Maria.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Senator Yamashita.
Thank you very much, Speaker Ben. Speaker Ben, what exactly is a rainy day fund and what is it used for?
The rainy day fund was a fund created by this Senator Cruz, I believe, and it requires that every year we set aside what we call a rainy day fund for the use of GVB in the event that we need to respond to internet. Well, I'll have Senator Cruz talk about his bill and his law.
In the event that there are occurrences in the world, like last year when they had the tsunami or different kinds of things, and you need to up the ante on the amount of money that you need for advertising in an area to get yourself back on your feet or to address something that's happening, that you have that money to be able to respond.
Right. Okay, great. Senator Ada.
That being the case, I'm just, I guess I'm a little puzzled by why do we have $2.4 million of unreserved TAF money sitting out there, and if after everything has been appropriated, it seems then that if we've budgeted for everything that GVB needs, then I guess the excess seems only logical. Put it in this rainy day fund.
Okay. Senator Cruz, would you?
The general manager has asked me to make some amendments, and that amount will go down considerably because she would like to see some more money going into the operations. And after we go through all of Senator Tina's, there are some amendments that she wants to have made.
So is that to say then that after we've gone, I'm sorry.
It'll still balance out. There'll still be a little bit of money left in the rainy day fund, but she's starting to use her rainy day fund by trying to augment. And when I have a chance, you'll see that I'm upping some, making recommendations to increase destination development and marketing. Do we want to take a break and have the manager come in?
No?
All right, fine. Then I'll wait to make my amendments then.
All right. Okay. So on the unreserved fund balance, the rainy day fund will be funded out of the balance of the unreserved balance instead of this year's collection. Okay. Number 8 is the appropriation for the Ass and Ass Chamorro project. Oz and A's? Oh. Senator Mooney Barnes?
The University of Guam students have been working closely with their instructors in capturing the O's and A's of the Chamorro language and its alphabets. And this project will be worked closely with Professor Dunca and the Chamorro students up at the university. Their project is ongoing. They're at their last draft stage, and the appropriation is to continue to finish the work there. The books, the documentation, the books, and the pictographs that come with the alphabets. And it would be used by the Guam Community College, the University of Guam, the public schools, and also for GVB because they're the ones that would be paying for this, the outcome of the prints.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Speaker Ben. So this would be something that tourists would like to pick up and take home. Thank you.
All right. Okay. The next section, Section 10, is the appropriation to the Section 9, Micronesian Cruise Association. 50,000 is appropriated from TAF to GVB for the Micronesian Cruise Association. Number 10 is the appropriation to the Guam International Film Festival, and this program will be supported with a $50,000 appropriation. Section 11 is a new Section 12 to add the World War II Survivor History Video Commentary will be supported with a $50,000 appropriation. And then the appropriation to FESPAC and the Folklife Festival Trust account. We're hosting the 2016 Festival of the Pacific of the Arts, and we're beginning to set aside money for that project, and $200,000 is appropriated from this year's surplus, the unappropriated surplus in fiscal year 2000 for this project. So that's the amendment. Amendment carries. Senator Munoz Barnes, did you have another? Or, okay, we'll finish with your amendment, and I'll remind me to go back to Senator Guthrid's.
Guthrie, Cruz.
Yeah,
The other one, it's got a two-part amendment that will, and I'd like to just delete item number 1, just disregard it, and
Okay.
go to item number 2 for my introduction, and that would be to add a new section 10 to chapter 10 to read section 10 service and reporting requirements. A, organizations receiving funds from the Tourist Attraction Fund shall provide Guam Visitors Bureau 10 hours of in-kind service per $1,000 appropriated to them for activities and or events as identified by the Guam Visitors Bureau. And B, all organizations that receive the Tourist Attraction Funds pursuant to this act shall maintain financial records that accurately account for the said funds and shall provide a budgetary breakdown by the object category to the Guam Visitors Bureau. This specifically says that if you receive a grant from the Guam Visitors Bureau, and if there's an event to advertise and promote a Guam Visitors Bureau project, then of course that in-kind donation, whether it be performance, whether it be entertainment, whether it be dancing, cultural dancing and all that, that they would provide in-kind support for that. We've done it in the past, never legislated it. We've worked closely with the Chamorro Village and Guam Visitors Bureau for the night market. And because we give these nonprofit organizations the grants, they should be able to provide some kind of in-kind support when we have folks from others who come in order to provide entertainment and or dancing and or Chamorro cultural interpretations or cultural speaking.
Okay. I have Senator Ada and then Senator Mabini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That paragraph A there, somehow I just find that that doesn't set right for me, at least. I mean, if GVB is going to fund that program, I would think that it's funding it because it believes that it merits the funding. But then to kind of, I guess I'll use the term hog tie them, that for every $1,000 you get. So that means then, for example, that Oz and A's project, because they're getting $25,000, are going to have to give 250 hours of in-kind service. I don't know. As the author of the amendment indicated, it's never been legislated before. I really don't see why we need to do so now. And so I would move to strike paragraph A.
Okay. On the amendment by Senator Ada to strike paragraph A, I have Speaker Wampat's hand up.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's funny, of course,
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh, paragraph A. Okay.
Yes, A.
Okay.
I will tell you of a group. It's a young group of poets, as a matter of fact, really, who have gone out there and bringing a lot of awareness of what's going on in the island. And one of their marketing tool that they've gone out to businesses to ask them to support some of their events, and so that they'll be able to continue to train young high school students to write and to think critically, and most importantly to stand up in the front of a crowd to orally present their poetry. And we all know that that's one of the biggest fear of all is public speaking, and to be able to teach this to young adults, that it's remarkable, and especially to teach critical thinking skills and to write creatively. So one of the marketing tools that they use when they go to the businesses to get support was to actually offer that when they get any donations from them, that they then, as an in-kind to them, will either do some promotional, so to speak, advertising or marketing for them in the exact medium that these students are actually being taught to do. And for me, I think that this really is very important. We have, I'm sorry to say that, we have, yes, many who have come to the legislature to get government funding. And I think we've kind of made a lot of these groups become so dependent on government funding that they fail to somehow feel that what it is that the monies that they're getting this for is a way also for them to give back to the community or the organization. And maybe when the previous speaker who had proffered the amendment was talking about, let's say, an amount like $25,000 might be a little bit exorbitant, but rather than just to delete this, I just feel that it is important, to be able then to still give back to, in some kind of in-kind service, for at least the donations that they're getting. And so I mean, I know it's to delete entirely, so that means I cannot amend it the way it is, but I would rather amend it than to just totally delete it, that there be, and let that be an agreement, I think, between the recipient of these monies with the GVB to determine what it is that that they would like, rather than to quantify exactly what this would be. So I would object to just deleting it entirely. And I think everybody here really would agree when you stop and think about it, because just take it one step away now and closer to home, is that because there's so many groups have come to always ask for donations. We get hit with that every day. And I've seen, and one of our members here has been really very supportive, even to help this group by helping themselves too, is that, when they come and say, like this young lady, I'll tell you, a young high school student that came, and she was chosen to go to one of these Ivy League universities. She took it upon herself, because she wanted to go, is that she's going to do a fundraiser. But what she did, though, is that when she went to, door to door, person to person, and she was showing and demonstrating what it is that she was doing, that whatever she was selling, is that there is, something that the buyer was going to get as a result of that, and see some lessons learned as a result of this. And that's really important. And I don't want to take that away. I really like to see that instilled upon, especially, some of the younger groups, because that's where we're teaching them, we're training them. We just don't want this attitude of, give me, and I give nothing back in return. And I think that that's a very valuable lesson that we don't want to not impart on our younger generation. So I'm hoping then that really we just don't delete this entirely, but we work with some type of in-kind contribution or service back for monies received. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Speaker Wampat. Senator Respicio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my concern with this amendment and this Section A is really that it's ambiguous, and so unless we can tighten it up or clean it up somehow, I will support the motion to delete. But my thoughts here is, you're not saying what kind of activity or what kind of an event. You're just saying whatever activity or event is identified by GVB, that these organizations have to provide these in-kind services. So what I'm hoping we could do is say something like, the in-kind services shall be consistent with the services provided pursuant to the respective grant award. And so that way, if an organization is receiving a grant to do cultural activities, and this is perfect to demonstrate to our tourists that arrive at the airport, and if there's any airport greeting, so that activity would be limited to that kind of event. I just don't want to see these organizations being told by GVB to go and pick up trash alongside the road, or do administrative services for this agency. If they're backlog in filing, I don't think we should have them be doing those kinds of things. And so if we're going to require some kind of in-kind payback for the grant that they receive, those services ought to be consistent with the services that they provide pursuant to that grant award. And so if we dispose of this amendment to delete, and if that doesn't pass, then I'd want to move this amendment to kind of tighten this up a little bit more.
Senator Mabini, did you want to speak on the amendment to delete? Oh, okay. Any other speakers on the amendment? On the amendment by Senator Adak to delete Section A. No, he said if your amendment fails, he wants to go. If you wish to.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go ahead and withdraw my amendment so that the preceding speaker can go ahead and move his amendment, so that then the in-kind service that's expected would be actually relevant to the program or project that's being funded.
Okay. So on the amendment to delete, on the author's request to withdraw his amendment, there's no objections. Senator Mabini, you're next on the amendment as presented.
Thank you. This is regarding the previous speaker's proposed amendments, is correct, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes.
provision of a new Section 10 for service requirement and the financial records.
Okay, and this relates to the comment that was made by the previous speaker regarding the kind of service that would be provided, and in the spirit of making sure that there's a degree of accountability that and I do agree with what the previous speaker had suggested, but perhaps also putting a sense of time frame for it, so that the grant that's given, just like in any grant that's offered, in many smaller, large grants, they either say, in order to receive this, you are required to match it. So maybe even the terminology of the matching might be in order. So matching of in-kind service, and then also may I suggest to the author possibly providing a time frame of when this should occur, as opposed to having that infinitum to providing services. So if the author would yield to the possibility of putting a time frame.
Okay. You'll work with the author. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So again, it's a suggestion to the author to put a time frame, and also to coincide with the previous speaker's suggestion regarding qualifying the kind of service that's attached to the grant. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Senator Respicio?
Here, let me do my amendment, please, Mr.
Yes.
Speaker. Then if there's others who want to deal with the 10 hours or taking that out or increasing it, I just want to make sure that we match the service provided to the kind of grant that they receive.
Okay.
And so my amendment will provide a new sentence after Guam Visitors Bureau to read, the in-kind services shall be consistent with the services provided pursuant to the respective grant award.
Okay.
Okay?
So, on the amendment by Senator Respicio,
And I have that in writing.
she has it in writing.
Yeah.
Any objections? No objections. The amendment by Senator Respicio has passed. Okay. All right. So on the main amendment now, as amended.
Yes,
Speaker
and,
Wampat.
Thank you very much. What I like to do is, and although I think it's great, consistent with the services provided, but I think it's that could stand alone by just actually deleting the 10 hours of in-kind services per $1,000 appropriated.
Your amendment, Speaker,
Is
would
to
be
delete this,
to delete
the dollar amount and the hours,
our.
and
Okay.
just leave it that instead that the service in-kind service provided are consistent, are consistent with the services provided.
So it's to delete.
It's just to delete
The-
the
Shall
the
provide Guam Visitors Bureau.
10 hours of, and then the per $1,000 appropriated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. On the motion by the Speaker, again, it's to delete 10 hours and per 1,000 appropriated. Okay?
In all fairness,
Senator Munya Barnes.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that I can respect the intent of the deletion for the hours to perform the in-kind services, but some grants are smaller than others, and some are really large. And what we wanted to do was try and put some fairness and parity into the amount of the performance that would need to be done. And take, for example, if you deleted that per hour charge, I would like to increase it a little, but if you deleted it totally, then GVB could literally abuse that organization and saying, no, you have to be there. And that's where I have concerns. So, when this amendment was being thought of, it was just to be able to say that if the Guam Visitors Bureau needed some cultural entertainment to perform for dignitaries coming in or for others coming in, and they were given a grant, that they would at least support those efforts. And this just gives a I guess our performance of what, and not have them being forced to come in every single time GVB calls. So I do have my reservations, and it's a quiet objection, I guess.
There's a quiet objection to the amendment. All right. Any other speakers? Any other speakers on the amendment? 10 hours and per 10,000. So they're required to provide in-kind services. Yes, that's correct. So it would per 1,000. Yeah, so it's just right. Yeah. Yes. All right. There's an objection to the amendment. Am I going to call for a vote on the amendment? Okay. There's an objection. There's an objection. All in favor of the amendment? New team, new team. Amendment fails. Okay. Yes, I have Senator.
Yeah, also on this section.
Oh,
just-
okay, on this
yeah.
section.
Also on this section, Mr. Speaker, just thinking quickly here, I'm wondering if we found an opportunity for other community service projects to be covered, and so I wouldn't like to limit it just to those events identified by the Guam Visitors Bureau, but rather say appropriated to them for activities for community service events. And the way we can require that they're meeting these requirements is that we say organizations must attest under penalty of perjury that they are meeting the requirements of this section. What I'm concerned about is now you have a group of people that will be at the whim of the Guam Visitors Bureau, and there's some kind of relationship here that may make it uncomfortable for the recipients of these grants. And so, and I don't want that to be a criteria to which they either continue the grant or not continue the grant. And I also want to make these available for like our mayors. If they host a fiesta, let's say a military group comes in and they have this huge island-wide party, I want to be able to have these mayors have this access to this resource and have them come in and present our culture to anyone they feel is deserving of that presentation. Actually, everyone ought to experience our beautiful hospitable culture. And so I want to delete the words and or and then add activities for community service events, and then just put a period there.
Activities for
Community service events.
Service events.
And then also add a last sentence, organization. After my amendment, Mr. Speaker,
amendment that carried.
add another sentence, these organizations must attest under penalty of perjury that they are meeting the requirements of this section.
Okay.
Okay?
So it would to delete and add activities for community service events, period.
Mm-hmm.
And then delete, of course, as identified by Guam Visitors Bureau, and then after the earlier adopted amendment of the
Add these organizations
Shall
must or shall attest under penalty of perjury that they are meeting the requirements of this section. And so when they, whatever the requirements of that grant, they would be submitting this to GVB saying that they have met this requirement.
All right. On that amendment by Senator Spicio? No objection. Amendment carries. Okay. Senator Muñoz Barnes? Is that it? Yes. Okay. All right. I have Senator Guthertz then on the Guam Visitors Bureau, Chapter 10.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to Xerox my amendment? Mr. Chairman, should I read my amendment now and then Xerox it, or should I Xerox it now before I read it? Okay. I'd like to read the amendment, dear colleagues, and I ask for your support.
Yes, you may
Okay.
proceed.
This is the amendment, Mr. Chairman. This would be a new provision. In order to enhance intramural sports activities among Guam student sports teams and visiting student sport teams from abroad who come to Guam and wish to experience village life and sports activities during their visits to the island, the sum of $20,000 is hereby appropriated from the unappropriated surplus of the Tourist Attraction Fund and or the Rainy Day Fund for the installation of new lighting fixtures for basketball courts and other athletic and stage facilities under the purview of the municipality of the PD's mayor's office. Now, I'd like to explain why I'm offering this. Since the last major typhoon on Guam, the village of PD's sports facilities has had no lighting at all. And the mayor there has been very, very upset. He's tried everything possible to have the lights replaced so that student sports teams, not just from his village, but from other villages, can avail of the basketball courts and the other sports facilities, and even the stage that's available in the village. The mayor has expressed to me that he is dealing with many visiting foreign sports teams that wish to interact with youth teams from his village and neighboring villages. But they do not have any lighting to be able to utilize the sports facilities in the late afternoon and evening hours where it's much cooler for competitions. So, Mr. Chairman, in the spirit of promoting youth exchanges and in order to provide a resolution to this long-standing problem, and it's really unforgivable that these facilities cannot be used in the late afternoons and evenings because there's no lighting, it's very dangerous, that we would help them to try to help the village promote sports activities in the village and with visiting teams from other villages and abroad, students from abroad. So I hereby ask my colleagues to please support this. This is an initiative where we bring our tourist support and our tourist revenues to help our communities. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Guthertz. I have Senator Ada on the amendment by Senator Guthertz.
Mr. Chairman, the amendment that's being proffered is certainly very good, but I would also like to amend that and add the village of Manilao to receive $60,000. They have up there the Eagles football field, which does not have, it's lacking in its street lights, in the lighting for the field. It's got a baseball field. It's got a basketball court. And so they also need to be given funding. So I would add to that an additional $60,000 from the non-appropriated reserves.
Okay. Senator Ada is proposing an amendment to increase the funding from 60 to 80 now? I mean from 20 to 80? Senator Muñoz Barnes?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to share with you that and I applaud the efforts of my colleagues in their efforts to promote sports tourism and sports within our youth and also within our residents from Guam and those who are visiting or those who are traveling, and making sure that our villages are equipped with the proper facilities needed for sports competitions. I want to say, as an avid sports athlete, one who has traveled. I've been blessed to have been traveling for Guam as an ambassador to represent Guam in basketball, track, and in softball. I just want to share that as oversight chair of the mayor's office and working closely with our Assistant Secretary of Interior, that the funding that is going to be needed to repair these facilities and augment the repair and the lighting I guess the governor made an announcement 2-3 weeks ago, the $500,000 that was going to be given to them from the Interior Department. So I just want to say, as much as I supported and wanted and all that, we've gotten the money for them. It just needs time, so I'm going to respectfully just object.
Okay. All right. On the amendment by Senator Ada. Yeah, they already did.
No, no.
Yeah. I'm going to call for a recess. Committee of the Whole is back in session. Senator Gutherts, I recognize you.
Mr. Chairman and
Happy.
colleagues, and in view of the natal day of my dear friend, Senator Barnes, and with the guidance of my colleague, Senator Frank Blas, Mr. Chairman, I have been assured that the needs of the student teams in the village of PD and their visiting foreign teams will be addressed shortly so that the folks involved will be able to use their athletic facilities in the village in the evenings again. And I've also been informed that there's an initiative occurring to also address the problems at Eagles Field, the lighting problems at Eagles Field. I want to thank my colleagues for understanding the importance of ensuring that our facilities in the villages are useful to our village students and their visiting teams from abroad. This should be a priority. Thank you very much. So I withdraw my amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. On the request to withdraw, no objections? Okay. That's it for Judy, dear? Okay. Yes. Speaker Wampat?
I know that this has been a real bone of contention, of course, in looking at continuing appropriations and all that. And I know that there were appropriations made from GVB from this current fiscal year in which some organizations were not able to withdraw the complete amounts. And what's going to happen now is, my question is, because I was called the other day, what would happen now, because they have not started to draw down, because every year they do their recruitment out in the schools to get started, and at the time that they're going to start is exactly at the start of the new fiscal year. So the question now is the monies that has been appropriated to them, which hasn't been drawn down yet, would mean then that they would not have access to it come October 1?
What it means is that they would have to put in their request to withdraw for the money to be granted to them. GVB can encumber it before the end of the fiscal year, and as long as they approve the grant request and it's encumbered, it will be available in the next fiscal year.
Okay.
But they have to put in their request now.
So I should just let them know to
Let
go to
them know.
GVB then
Yes.
and put in their request.
Right,
Okay,
right.
thank you very
Okay.
much.
All right. Any other comments? All right. That concludes the GVB chapter. The next amendment we have, that was, yeah. I have Senator Cruz, your amendment that you had asked us to present to you the other day. Unfortunately, you had to proceed to an engagement. You placed it upon us to do that. We did not do that. So
Okay,
we want to
so
return
I
to
make
it.
the motion at this point on the GMH one. I think everybody's got a copy of it.
Yes,
on
we
the
did pass it
appropriation
out.
to GMH, that 125,000 be utilized, shall be used to purchase the computers that they stated in their letters they needed to purchase.
Okay. And you have that, ladies and gentlemen. It'll be added to page 139. No objections? Amendment carries. The next amendment we have is Senator Mabini. The executive director shall maintain records.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is relative to, let's see, page 151, line 8. Let me grab that. Section 3. This is in regards to receiving the donations for the support of Skinner Plaza, Plaza de España, and Guam Congress Building. In the spirit of transparency and accountability, I would recommend, and I'm putting forward an amendment to improve upon this section. Although I support the efforts in support in the donations and non-monetary items as well to be to support the Skinner Plaza, Plaza de España, and Guam Congress Building. I have an amendment that will ensure the community that that we are doing our due diligence to ensure that the funding and any non-monetary donations are being accounted for. So the amendment would read at the end of the line 8 of that section, the executive director shall maintain records of all monetary and non-monetary donations received for the purpose of maintaining and renovating Skinner Plaza, the Plaza de España, and the Guam Congress Building. A report and financial statements on said projects, SUPRA, shall be submitted to the Speaker of Legislature in Guam and the Office of Public Accountability. And I do have a small amendment removing by July 1st each year. What I would like to put in is instead of by July 1 each year, and I will put the amendment on your table, sir, in the Office of Public Accountability within 30 days of said fiscal year.
Within 30 days?
Yes, within
Okay.
30 days of said fiscal year. And it continues on, the Office of Public Accountability shall include the financial statements herein as part of the audit of the annual financial statements of Il Legislature en Guam. And again, it's just to ensure that we provide the degree of transparency and accountability for the good work that comes out of this agency. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the amendment, Speaker Wampat?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The amendment is good, definitely. We like to be able to always be as transparent, as possible, especially if we're getting any kind of donations. But I'd just like to note for the record is that although we, yes, currently own these other, places, the Skinner Plaza and the Plaza de España and the Guam Congress Building, is that it is the policy of this legislature, and it has been the policy of this legislature and our leadership since we've been in leadership, is that we do not charge at all for any type of function that anyone in the community would want to use the facility for whatever purposes. It's just that we say that when you're done, is that you put it back to its original state, and it is our own employees who actually maintain the facility. So, I mean, I'm not saying everybody now rush to come and
All right.
use the facility, but just for everyone's, own knowledge, is that we don't charge.
Thank you very much. Any objections? No objections. The amendment carries. The next amendment would be Senator. Oh, did you have your hand up, Senator Adams? Right. I'm going to recognize Senator Rodriguez. He has a couple of amendments, and then we'll. Senator Rodriguez?
I can just go with
Yes.
all of them? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First amendment is to add a new 3 to subsection N of section 1 of chapter 5 to read,
That's page 83, just for the body's
Okay.
record.
To read the sum of $1,004,000 from the general fund appropriation in part N2 of this section shall be allocated to pay for outstanding prior year obligations to the Guam Memorial Hospital. The Guam Memorial Hospital shall use the amounts received pursuant to this subsection for medical supply or services vendor payments only. And Mr. Chair, what happened here is that when the budget was submitted for DOC, it was overstated by about $1 million for their contractual services for meals. And so since that submission of the budget, we know that the department has awarded the meals contract, which was $1 million less than what they had anticipated. And so I thought it was important to divert $1 million of that savings into what they owe GMH. And this, Mr. Chair, does not extinguish the debt that is owed by DOC to GMH, which is about $3 million. And so this amount would be a big help to restoring some sense of financial, to help financially the Guam Memorial Hospital. And so I'd like to ask that this be included.
Okay. On the amendment by Senator Rodriguez, no objections. Amendment carries. This does not increase the appropriation level at all. So, Okay, Senator Rodriguez, you have one more.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chair. This adds new 5 to subsection S of section 1 of chapter 5.
Okay,
And I don't have the
for the
page.
convenience of the body, that's on page 97.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the amendment would read: the sum of $199,000 from the general fund appropriation in part S4 of this section shall be allocated to pay for outstanding obligations to the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority. The Guam Memorial Hospital Authority shall use the amounts received pursuant to this subsection for medical supplies and/or service vendor payments only. And just like DOC, Mr. Chair, Department of Labor, as of July 31st, 2012, owes the hospital about $199,000. And so this does not increase the appropriations. This ensures that the amount that is appropriated to the Workmen's Compensation Fund, part of that is used to extinguish their debt to GMH.
Okay. On the amendment, no objections. Amendment carries. Okay. That's
One
it.
more,
One more.
the one for the AG.
Oh. Do you have it, Senator? Can you read that? Can you read the amendment? Senator Rodriguez?
Yes, this adds a new section 4 to part 1 of chapter 7 to read section 4: the office of the Attorney General shall allocate the sums necessary from its operations object category to establish and maintain the Family Violence Registry database as provided pursuant to chapter 30, title 9, subsections 30.200, known as the Family Violence Registry Act. And Mr. Chair, what this does is that the statute that was passed earlier by this body required that the Office of Attorney General submit in their budget what is necessary to establish and maintain this database. And so what we're doing here is ensuring that it is done by allocating portions of what is needed from their operations objects category to establish this database.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have Senator Palacios.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, of course, I support the idea, but I received yesterday via text actually the cost breakdown to do that, and the AG compared that with the court's sex offender registry. And they're talking around maybe $50,000, $60,000 for inputting and to maintain really and fully implement the statute itself. So to dedicate a certain part of that to away from the already lean budget, I mean, I that's my observation, that's my comment. I don't know what kind of language that would maybe allow them to find money and put it, but that's actually my concern, if you understand, Mr. Speaker, because they have to implement this. But they need at least one full-time and one part-time to do this and to maintain it. We're talking here about family violence registry. Family violence, Mr. Speaker, occur more frequently than the sex offender registry. So the activity is more voluminous than the registration, and that's why they're saying that. That's my comment, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Speaker Wampat?
Thank you. With that information, then, of course, in which they're able to carry out and do the sex offender registry and comparable to what it is that they're saying they'll need for the family violence registry, is that I'm wondering then that the individuals who currently then who did this, could they now be redirected to now then, since they are on board, the one full-time, one part-time, that this now would be a new, responsibility. And with that then, can that be done I'm just asking only based on the statement, of course, from the chairman on public safety, whether then because they were able to do it for one, and those individuals are still then on board, and it's the amendment does not really take away then. It just means a collateral then responsibility of those individuals, and maybe whether language should be included here that those individuals who did the other registry would now do this.
Senator Palacios,
Just clarification. The sex offender registry, Mr. Chairman, is handled by the court. The family violence is supposed to be handled by the AG's office. So there is the separation, but the budgetary estimate that the AG did is based on the cost now to maintain the sex registry.
Okay.
That's right. But they're separated, Madam Speaker.
Okay. All right. Thank you. On the amendment, there's no objections? We'll work on the additional budget? Yeah, recognizing that. Okay. Amendment passes. That's it, right? Speaker Wampat, and then Senator Ada.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. A couple of days ago, when we had Gita here, we were asking, several questions, that had to do with JFK and the additional amounts, for the additional rental and maintenance and insurance and all that. And you were able to then secure then the breakdown of the budget that based on the agreement that they're supposed to submit. And when you read, of course, the agreement is that there's actually a floor and there was a ceiling. And my concern here is that, and both Ms. Garcia and Mr. Pangilinan indicated, is that there is this window to go in and negotiate. And it's even written there is that when they submit a budget, then of course is that the response from the department, which would you expect the Department of Education, since they were saying that they were part of the negotiation, then apparently that amount was not negotiated at all by the department. So it was just a dollar amount that was submitted, which you originally had. Currently have in the budget of $1.568 million from the TEFF. And however, in the agreement, it actually talked about, and the lowest of the floor of what would be needed to address certain issues was $389,500 for the CAPFA insurance and maintenance agreement. So my amendment is, because then what we want to do, and using the same language, of course, Mr. Chairman, that you use for the school lunch program, is to allow then, since we're hearing the DOE, that this budget is to be submitted to DOE and that they can go in and negotiate, then they need to go in and negotiate. They're not just going to flatly accept the $1.5 million. So my amendment then is that I'd like to reduce that amount to $389,500, which shall be allocated from the Territorial Education Facilities Fund to, in that particular section, Section 2, for the CAPFA insurance maintenance agreement. Then in another paragraph, because remember I mentioned earlier was 1.568, is that the balance of 1.178,500 then shall be allocated to TEFF appropriation in Section 2 for the maintenance and capital reserves for the JFK High School. And this is the clincher, the language here, that notwithstanding the appropriation in Section 2, these funds shall not be expended without the approval of Legislature in Guam and the submission of a detailed plan for the use of the funds submitted by the Superintendent of Education as approved by the Guam Education Board, and also to submit a copy to the Legislature no later than October 31st, 2012. Because this is always for October for the new fiscal year. And normally when you're submitting a budget, there's always that give and take. There's that negotiation. You try to always get, of course, more for the monies that you're putting in. We're not going to appropriate these monies at all. They cannot be touched at all until such time that the negotiation has been completed. Then to make sure then that we will be able to, continue on with the maintenance and insurance of the additional rental costs that will be needed for JFK. So that's my amendment.
On the amendment by Speaker Wampat, any objections? No objections? The amendment carries. I'm going to recognize Senator Tony Ada on your amendment, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, my amendment is on Section 17-159 for wireless communications restrictions. And it's a very simple amendment, Mr. Chair. And it's just to, on Section A, on the very last, after Guam Visitors Bureaus, just to insert the restrictions of this section shall not apply to wireless internet services, stationary wireless telephone services, and wireless voice over the internet protocol services. And Mr. Chair, this gives our agencies an opportunity that, as you recall, Guam Memorial Hospital at one point in time was looking at voice over internet protocol services for their telephone services as a means to save on telephone expenses. And this will give them that opportunity to continue to explore that. And then also, is this to add in a Section B that that no manager, agency director, or supervisor can require an employee of the government of Guam, and this will be throughout the government, will require them to have a wireless, a cell phone that they can communicate with them, especially for work purposes. I mean, if the employee has that cellular and he turned around and gave that as his contact information, then that's his means of communicating. However, if the supervisor needs to communicate with them and that's his personal cell phone, it shouldn't be done for work purposes, sir. And I look forward to getting my colleagues' support. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Palacios on the amendment by Senator Tony Ada.
I support the amendment, but I would like to make an amendment on the same section about what we were talking earlier.
Yes. Okay.
Is this the right time to do it, or
Yes, I would go ahead and do that.
Okay, so actually, after the word law enforcement officials, and that's up there, I think, on line 7. I'm looking at the budget. It's actually line 12 of page 160. And I just want to insert their own co-attorney of the Office of the Attorney General and of the Office of the Public Defender Service Corporation. I know that they have own co-attorneys for, I guess, any emergency or any issues. And this was brought to my attention by the Deputy Chief. And just an inquiry, Mr. Chairman, probably no need to insert here an own co-investigator of the Attorney General because they are law enforcement, definitely.
Right.
So that's my amendment, is to insert that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On the amendment by Senator Palacios to insert on-call attorneys of the AG and the Public Defender Services Corporation after law enforcement officials, no objections. On the amendment by Senator Tony Ada as amended by Senator Palacios, Senator Tom Ada.
Mr. Chairman, as I look at this amendment, it seems that what we're trying to do is we're really walking on eggshells in trying to maintain the spirit, I guess, of this restriction on the use of wireless communications devices, particular cell phones. And if I recall, this restriction was put in because in one of the earlier administrations, I guess what they did was they basically allowed a telecommunications company to erect their cell phone antennas on government property, and in exchange, basically it was an in-kind. You can set it on my property, and in-kind what they got was unlimited cell phone. And it really got to the point where it was kind of abused. But the concern that I have with this restriction as it continues today is the fact that on the one hand, we're moving towards trying to downsize government. But at the same time, if we're gonna, and that's fine that we're moving in that direction, but we also gotta have to offset it somewhat by allowing for a more efficient operation. And I believe that you know, the use of cell phones is a device that will add to that efficiency. And so I guess if I was able to do it now, I probably would have made the amendment to just strike out Section 17, either that or, you know, but just to, it just seems that with that restriction, we kind of have our heads in the sand, and that, you know, it's kind of like, no, you have to continue using one of those Underwood manual typewriters, and you can't use an electric typewriter or, you know, the word processing features of the computers. And so I just wanted to express that, you know, I think a decade ago when this restriction was put in, I think maybe it was appropriate. But I think we really need to revisit that restriction. And so I guess we can, I don't know if it's appropriate, we'll go ahead and act on this amendment, and then I'll come back after that, and I'll make a motion to strike Section 17.
Now?
Huh?
Now? Or in a separate bill?
Oh, a separate bill?
Yeah.
Well, I guess a separate bill is, I think that would have merit also.
Because I'd like to know what they're spending on the cost now and what they anticipate it's going to cost.
Sure. Okay. That's fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the amendment as amended, no objections. Amendment carries. Senator Mabini, you have one additional amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment that I have, that everybody should have in front of them, refers to a previous bill that I had that was unfortunately not approved by the by the governor, was vetoed, and I brought it back in. And it wasn't because that the intent or the bill was bad. It was a matter of the verbiage to allow the administration, the governor, to carry out this program. And this program is the International Prison Transfer Program. The previous bill was Bill 306, and currently it's now Bill 469. But what I'd like to do is add in the miscellaneous provisions the inclusion of just one paragraph to include this, and I believe it's appropriate to include this amendment in this particular, in our bill, our budget bill, because it deals a lot with finances. The language that I'm proposing to add as an amendment, as it reads, it's the section under Section 23, a new section, and again, I'm not sure if this is the appropriate numbering. Is to transfer foreign nationals imprisoned in Guam to country of citizenship. So in essence, when a treaty is in effect between the United States and a foreign country that provides for the transfer of convicted offenders who are citizens or nationals of the foreign country, the governor of Guam or the director of the Department of Corrections, if designated by the governor on behalf of the island and subject to the terms of the treaty, may consent to the transfer of the convicted offenders who are under the jurisdiction of the Department of Corrections to the place or jurisdiction specified in the treaty. The governor may take any other action necessary to initiate the participation of this territory in the treaty. And it's very simple language, and this is a sample language actually that other jurisdictions use to allow their state or their country to join this international treaty. And as I'd shared in the past at the public hearing and at the previous session when my original bill was heard, 25% of our personnel, prisoners in our Department of Corrections are foreign nationals. And the calculation that the governor had shared as far as $6 million last year just to feed, to house the immigrant prisoners is what it cost the government, $6 million. That's about, it comes down to $35,000 per prisoner. And so this particular amendment would allow us the ability to recover the revenues, and this is something that the government really would benefit from. I wanted to share something else. Again, the regional migration, population on Guam is about 18%. Within our prisons, prison population, that particular group represents 26%. So there's a disproportionate representation. So this particular inclusion will allow Guam to join a host of countries that CNMI participates in as well to benefit from the treaty. We will financially benefit from it, and it is a federally funded program, so there's no cost to the government of Guam. We will only just be able to recognize revenue. So I ask that my colleagues support this amendment. It was supported in the previous bill as well. Thank you,
very
Mr.
much,
Speaker.
Senator Mabini. Senator Palacios, I recognize you.
Just a comment, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, that I rise in support of this amendment. Actually, this is a bill that was heard about some months ago, and additional research was done in collaboration with the governor's office, especially the legal counsel. And this is, I think, the language that they requested. I found out from the AG's office because I looked into this issue and with the court, and really, without this kind of language, a reference to the treaty, we have no authority actually to transfer this. But with this, again, based on the treaty and we're following the treaty, this is the mechanism that would be satisfied, would satisfy that requirement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Ada. Tom Ada, I reckon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have some reservations with this amendment here. I know that in the past, I believe the Attorney General expressed his objection to these transfers. And so now, on the one hand, the Attorney General's office is working hard to basically bring these offenders to justice and basically put them behind bars and start paying for their misdeeds. And then on the other side of the building, we basically have the governor or the Department of Corrections, for that matter, the director, letting them out. Maybe if this is going to work, I would like to see language put in to the effect that upon the recommendation of the Attorney General, then let the I think there are some cases where the Attorney General's office knows the details of why this person needs to be incarcerated, and I think we should get the benefit of that counsel. So I would like to put language here, and maybe on the third line where it says who are citizens or nationals of the foreign country, comma, at the recommendation of the Attorney General, the Governor of Guam, or the direct. I'm going to have to work out the language, but somehow we've got to bring the Attorney General into this conversation.
Is that an amendment, Senator?
I don't have the exact words, and maybe this is where counsel can assist, but we've got to somehow that this process gets started at the recommendation of the Attorney General.
Okay. I'll recognize Senator Bloss to speak on the main amendment while you write yours up.
And maybe if I can provide some to the good senator with regards to his concern. I recognize his concern. I'm fully aware of also the AG's concern. The way the program is designed, Mr. Chair, is that this is going to be a prison transfer. The transfer is going to be from this prison to another prison. This is not so much, although this can be also construed as, in some cases, for lack of a better term, deportation. This does not dismiss the fact that the individual still has a prison term to serve. And so this process will not, if the individual's home of record does not contain a facility suitable to continue the term, then that individual can't go there. Okay? So yes, I understand the concern with regards to it's not just a matter of taking him out of our system, deporting him or sending him back to this individual's home of record, and then because there's no facility, he's led out into in there and not made to serve any time. No, he has to be transferred, or she has to be transferred to a similar facility for the purposes of serving out a sentence. Okay, so I don't know if that helped, but you know, along those lines, I am in support of this amendment. This does provide, you know, again, some opportunity for, in some cases, cost savings, but in other things, it's being able to move this individual to a similar correctional facility.
Okay. Senator Ada, after that explanation, did you wish to proceed with your amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I think the amendment that I would like to make to this is that on the third line, where it reads, the transfer of convicted offenders who are citizens or nationals of the foreign country, comma, upon the recommendation of the Attorney General of Guam, the Governor of Guam may consent to the transfer of the convicted offenders who are under the jurisdiction of DOC. So we delete then, or the Director of Department of Corrections if designated on behalf of the island and subject to the terms of the treaty, and just simply say upon. So the AG is the one that will initiate the process through his recommendation.
I have Senator Mabini on the amendment by Senator Ada.
I object to the, well, first off, let me share that I agree with the spirit of the inclusion of the Attorney General, because this process will require their participation. This process cannot work without the Department of Justice and the Attorney General and our assistant attorney. And they are part of the process. What I object to is the language that eliminates the on behalf of the island and subject to the terms of the treaty. That is critical, because that is the language that we want to include. Now, I do want to also address the concern of the previous speaker that yes, there are degrees of crimes that are being paid for by in the prison, and of course we'd prefer to have certain crimes, to have those be served, those certain hard times be served, especially the heinous crimes. And I know that our people are willing to have them pay that price, and even if that and in the best interest of our justice system, and even if that means that they stay in our prison system. What this bill does is addresses all those other prisoners that don't fall under that category. So going back to the suggested amendment, I'd be willing to include, the suggested amendment about including the Attorney General, the Governor of Guam, or the Director. And the reason why the Director of Department of Corrections is because usually in these programs, the Governor appoints an administrator. Usually it's the Director, the Manager of the prison, in conjunction working with the Department of Justice, and on behalf of the island and subject to the terms of the treaty. We cannot remove that. We need to retain that so that we can be included in the treaty.
On the amendment by Senator Ada, was it your intention to delete that subject to the terms of the treaty, Senator Ada?
No, it was an oversight on my part.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. That's exactly what I thought, Senator Ada. So on the amendment, of course, without the deletion of subject to the terms of the treaty, there was no objection, right? But allow the designation? Okay. All right. So on the amendment to add upon the recommendation of the Attorney General, the Governor may consent to ... with the other changes, with the language still intact for the subject to the terms of the treaty and a designated representative. Okay? Is that okay? No objections? Amendment carries. Can I get a lunch? Committee of the Whole is back in session. I recognize Senator Espicio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if we could take a lunch break, because I do have a public hearing next door. It's supposed to start at 12 and come back at 3 o'clock this
3
afternoon.
o'clock. We'll be
Thanks.
3 o'clock. Okay? We're in recess until 3.